Well, welcome once again to a new episode of the L&D Ninja. I'm your host, Reggie Padin, and I am so glad that once again we can be here having a great conversation. I know that I always say this before every episode, but I want to say it again. You're gonna love today's guest. He is a rock star in the learning and development space. I've known him for many years. He's a go-getter. One of the most entrepreneurial people that I've ever met, one of the most coachable people that I've ever met. And I am so glad that Edwin Garcia is with us. He is the Director of Learning and Development for ThriveDX, what used to be HackerU.
Yes, sir.
And I've gotten to meet his team. They're a fantastic team, and you know that you have a great leader when it's reflected on the team. As a leader goes, so does the team. And when I met with these fine professionals in learning and development, I knew I had to get. Oh, I already knew that I had to get Edwin on the podcast at some point, but it definitely confirmed that I needed to have him here. So, thank you so much for joining me, Edwin. It's so nice to see you and to share this time with you.
Yeah, same here. Always great to see you. It's a true pleasure and a privilege to be able to participate and hopefully share some great insights, some great ideas, talk amongst each other about things in the industry, but more importantly, maybe share some history, some backstory about how we knew each other, how we've grown to stay together over the years. I think that's warranted.
If you want to go there, that's fine. Edwin, talk to us about what you do in your role as Director of Learning and Development. For many years there, you were on the recruiting side, right? On the admission side of things, and now, I mean, obviously they saw your leadership and your ability to motivate people. So, when did this happen, and do you like it? What's going on?
Well, to say that I like it is an understatement. I have to say I absolutely love it. I work with a great group of individuals. Thank you for those kind words regarding the team. I mean, they are absolutely rock stars. They're amazing. One thing I learned early in my career is the speed of the leaders, the speed of the troops. Absolutely. So, we elevate each other, right? But we lead by example. A little bit of myself, I've been in higher education for over 15 years. So kind of like you, we've been in the space and kind of learned, and I started in admissions, right? So kind of like some folks know it as recruitment, some folks know it as admissions. So always more face-to-face with students, but learning, growing. I've always been into personal development. As you mentioned, entrepreneurial spirit, always looking for the next big thing. And, worked at a few institutions in my career. And I actually, what a lot of people don't know is I left the education space.
You did. I remember
prior to working at HackerU, now known as ThriveDX, I left the education space. I went into a little bit of real estate. I went into locums, which for those who may not know is temporary staffing. So it's recruitment for healthcare professionals. You have everything from advanced practice to surgeons to, different specialties. Did that for a while. And it was a friend of mine who I previously worked with early in my career. It's actually the first institution of higher education that we worked together. And my friend was like, hey, you know what? I think you'd be great for this opportunity. You should take a look at it. And it's funny because the first time he told me, I said no. And I said, no, I'm not looking to go back to education. I'm good where I'm at. I kind of walked away from that. I've kind of been there, done that, experienced the highs and the lows. And at that time, I thought I was done, right? And one day he reached back out to me, like not even a few weeks later. And he said, you know what? I think you should really reconsider. It was one day I was driving home. It was a long commute. I used to I still live in Miami, drive to Broward. And, without traffic, maybe an hour and a half. And on days of traffic, you're 2+ hours commute. Chaos. That's each way, right? So and he just caught me on the right day. And I'm a firm believer and I'm a big proponent that there's no coincidence, no accidents. Everything happens on purpose, for purpose. And I felt like I was meant to say yes to that call, right? And I said, you know what? I'd like to learn more about the opportunity. So in the back of my mind, I'm like, it's okay to say no, but at least know what you're saying no to, right?
Absolutely. So you gotta listen to it.
If you're gonna say no, know what you're saying no to, right? So I said okay, and I spoke to one of the leaders that I still work with to this day. Met the CEO, And, just such a great group of individuals, so pragmatic, just, the vision of the company. And I had never worked for a startup. So it was like, I was like, I had always worked for institutions or places of business that have been established. Yeah. So going there, I was like, man, it's a big risk in my career, but I was willing to take the risk. Because if you're not willing to risk, you can't grow. If you can't grow, what else is there? Right.
No,
so I took the risk. Best decision I ever made in my career. Started as an advisor. So I had to actually take a step back, right? Started as an advisor. Within a few short months, got promoted to what we call a senior, which is kind of like the team lead. Then from there, got a tap on the shoulder. What was funny was I didn't want to go into training. My boss was like, hey, you know what? We have a need for training. We think you'd be the great person to lead the team there.
So it was by accident again. Well, not accident, right? But they saw you and they thought it would be a good idea.
True story. And he's probably, if he sees this, he's probably going to laugh at me for saying this. He said, we're going to put you there. And he gave me the kind of like the option, like, hey, we'd like to put you in training. And I was like, you know what, let me think about it. Because my vision, my goal was I wanted to be a director of admissions because that's the career path I've always taken. Right. Always been in admissions, sales, drive business. I've always been that guy.
Close the deal.
And close the deal. Right. So what was so funny was he tells me, he goes, I'll give you the day to think about it, but I'm still going to put you there.
You're doing it or you're doing it.
Yeah. So, I said, all right, well, let's not waste any time. Let's just do it, and we move forward. And at that time, COVID had just hit. So we literally went remote, like within like the same few weeks that I had moved into the position.
Wow.
And, we were doing things. We were still a startup. So, I think we were like 20 people in the office. Then we grew to 40, then 80. And then all of a sudden it just started growing and growing. And then COVID hit and we went remote. And mind you, like all this using Zoom, all the technology, all that was new to me and a lot of the members on the team.
Sure.
So we were literally building the plane as it flies. That's where we were at as a company, as a startup, as an organization. And we made it work. We made it work, and just surrounded by so many talented people. We all elevated each other, like I mentioned. So then within what was funny was I got another tap on the shoulder, like about a couple months later. He goes, hey, we need you to come back to recruitment, but as a director of admissions. So I actually went back to be a director of admissions, and then within a few months got the tap on the shoulder again to come back over to training as a director of training. So I've worn multiple hats within the organization, and still to this day. But officially, my current title is director of training.
For those people who don't know about Thrive DX, what are you guys all about? What do you guys do? Give us a little bit of background.
So we specialize in digital skills. Our flagship program, we started with cybersecurity, right? And we specialize in boot camps, and we are expanding. Now we have different branches of the organization and different businesses that we're getting involved with. But the meat and potatoes, the bread and butter of what we do is really to partner with universities and teach these boot camp style programs. We've now expanded from cybersecurity to digital marketing, UI, UX, software development, data science, analytics. And we partner with some of the most top tier universities in the country. We're talking about University of Miami, NYU. We just partnered with Penn State, California State University, University of Michigan. So, it's a great opportunity to really partner with the universities and tailor to the students, because education is changing, right? We're in a world you literally got to run to stand still. Information changes by the millisecond. So we're able to deliver these top tier education and partner with these world class partners to be able to come together and help. Ultimately, who is the most important person are our students.
How many students? What's the size of the student population?
Oh, it grows day to day, week to week, month to month. We hit a record I believe it was last month. We had about over 6,000.
Oh my word!
6,000 overall. Ooh. Yeah,
that's a lot.
And we continue to grow because what's happening is we're partnering with more universities. We're partnering with more branches within the company. But as more programs get added, as more institutions partner with us, that grows our student population. And again, it's a partnership. So it's universities that are putting their brand and trust in us.
Yes.
And we're delivering this world-class education, the curriculum, the instructors, the admissions, everything from A to Z.
Well, and it's it's in fields that are, you can't find enough workers in those fields. It's really, really hard to keep up. Are most of your students do they go to campus? Is it online? How does that work
Well,
out?
after COVID, we officially went remote. So the
Okay.
university partners, I don't know if we still do, but we had one program partner that still allowed us to do on campus.
Okay.
We started on campus. It was actually a boot camp designed to go on ground 2 days a week for what we call the intro course, which is the beginning phases. And then after a month of doing the course, students can make a mutual decision. Do they decide this is a good fit for them?
Mm,
We feel like, hey, this is a great opportunity for you to move forward in the admissions process. And then the student progresses into what we call the extended course, which is phase 2 of the program. In the past, our program was taught on ground. After COVID, everything was remote.
got
Right.
it. Got it.
So
Got it.
as of right now, everything's taught remotely.
Wow, and
Students can
6,000
participate.
students remote. That's a huge challenge.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a huge challenge for your team. Wow, I can't even imagine that. Um, let me ask you this: when you made the move to L&D, um, but first of all, did you have background in L&D or I mean, because
So
I know that you've always been um, a good trainer. Do you want to give the backstory of as to how we met?
thought you'd never ask.
Yeah, I mean, because no, because I'm gonna be able to tie to why it made a lot of sense, even though you didn't have formal training or
Right.
background in L&D to be there. I mean, I to me it made a lot of sense because how I know you. So you wanna go there?
So yeah, I actually went back to school to get my BBA in organizational management at a university you're familiar with, because not only did you graduate from there, but you
Yeah,
taught there
I talked there.
at Carlos Albizu University, CAU. And it's actually when I started my career in higher ed. And I was a big proponent of, if you're going to preach the gospel, you got to believe in it. Right? So
Absolutely.
I'm informing students about advancing their career, their education, and preaching about how education can change your life. So I decided to go back to school and get my degree, right? After having started a family later in life, and went back and said, you know what, now's the time. Now is the
Yeah.
time. If not now, when? If not me, who? Right? So
Yeah.
I went ahead and made the decision to move forward. Took a few of the courses, and then came across your class, Dynamic Business Impressions,
Which, by the
right?
way, was a
Dynamic
requirement.
Business Presentation,
That's
Dynamic
right.
Business Presentation, right? And I was like, oh, this class is good. I can't wait to take this course. And then I took the course.
Yeah.
And it was so funny because not only did I learn so much, but I really was able to hone in on the skills on how to deliver a quality presentation.
Yeah.
I really had to captivate your audience on the little things that make a big difference,
Yeah.
and really just execute. Just execute when you're in front of a large group of people.
Yeah.
And, that carried with me throughout my career, because whether it was leading meetings, whether it was training a group, training a team, and even, I would say, even early in my career, even before I got into education, it was funny because I would always get comments from some certain leaders like, if we could just duplicate you, if we can make a whole bunch of you, and can you train this new person, or can you help us with, this phase of the business? And
Yeah.
it always led back to training. It always led back to training.
It always does.
And so took your course, like I mentioned, and the rest is history. We
Yeah.
stayed in touch all the years. It's been what, plus 14
Let's
years?
see. I my first actually, Edwin, you were probably in this either my first cohort or the second cohort I ever taught. That was back in 2009. Is
Yeah, I
that
was going to say
when you started?
2008, 2009, I think, because I had started
Okay,
at one of
so
the schools that I worked at around that time. And well, a couple of years before that, but then I went back to school, like I mentioned.
yeah,
And like you mentioned, it was one of the requirements, but I was looking forward to the course just
yeah.
because of the name of the class.
Well, and one of the things I remember, Edwin, that you confessed later on that it was your first time that you were used to having a lot of one-on-ones, right? But
Yep.
you
Yep.
didn't have much, if any, experience of
Correct.
delivering
Correct.
in front of a group. And one of the things that I remember about you, which again, it goes to the core of being a leader, whether you're in L&D or in any other type of leadership capacity, and that is you have to be coachable.
Yeah.
And
Big time.
my class was not a gimme, right? It was not.
No, no. I had to go back and do some of the work because you were like, can you walk me through this step and this step? And I was like, sure, let me take you through this. And you're like, yeah, I think we have to do this over again.
Yeah.
But then
So
when we did it over, you were like, that's what I'm talking about, right? You were like, that's what I wanted
have,
you to do. And I took it home and delivered.
have you ever watched the movie Whiplash?
That's the one with the drumming.
with the drummer, that
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah,
crazy.
yeah, yeah.
So I don't. I'm not. I wasn't like that conductor, obviously.
Yeah.
Uh,
He was a little heavy.
but I like to say that I take it very seriously. And why I love teaching that course. Um, it's because if you learn how to present well and you can connect with an audience, it doesn't matter the career you're in, right?
Yeah,
If
it's
I
true.
mean,
It's true.
all you have to do is learn about that career, but if you can connect with your audience and connect with the people that you're either going into business with or providing a service or leading, uh, it just it just makes a lot of sense. And so
100%.
and that's what I learned about you, Edwin, during those years, that I was harsh but always with care, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Because I always want my students um, to learn it and grasp it in order for them to be able to grow. And for me, Edwin, it's full circle, right? I mean, now I'm coming to an age, and I'm not that old by any means, but I'm at a stage in my life where I bump into former students, and I've taught hundreds and hundreds of students. Um, and I see what you're doing, right? I see the leadership capacities that you're all in, and it just brings just it brings a tear to my eye sometimes to see. But I'm so proud here. I see all of you, and I'm so proud, and I couldn't be prouder of you and your career and what you've done and your trajectory, because it's absolutely it's a model for other people to follow. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Edwin, so you got into L&D, again, because you've always been very good at training people, but now you're faced with, okay, now I have a team, right? And they probably started with a small team, and now it's been growing. How did you adjust to that, of now having people um, who perhaps do have or did have a background in L&D, right?
Mm.
And so how did you make that transition, and how has it been?
Well, I always believe that the cool thing about working with people from all walks of life, all careers, is that, and it's like an old saying, right? You're never too old to learn, and you're
Right,
never too young to teach.
right,
So we can learn from everyone, right? And even throughout my whole career, I've learned from the best of the best and the worst of the worst. And I've learned what not to do and what to do. And
absolutely,
then you gravitate towards the people that really know their stuff or have certain answers, and you work together. And I feel like we can balance each other, the weaknesses and the strengths and the opportunities. And there were some folks that had that background, and I would learn from them, starting with the CEO. CEO was a phenomenal trainer.
mm,
And, every time he would do a training, I'd take pages and pages and pages of notes.
hmm,
And then working with some folks that are on my team now that have a tremendous amount of experience, and learning more about what really is L&D, from adult learning theory to putting together a learning plan, to
yeah,
all the intricacies of training. Because my old school way was just like, get it done,
let's get
train
it.
people, everything pour into them. And I've always been fascinated with making people better than
Yeah,
they were before they met you, right? So like for me, with or without the background, with or without the experience, I always connected with my audience, my people, and my team.
yeah,
And there was something special about when you have that energetic connection, when you have that emotional, it's like that you feel it.
yeah,
And when you're training or you're teaching or you're learning from someone, and you see it in their eyes, that glow,
yeah.
right? And we could all learn from each other. So to kind of answer your question, I really just became a sponge, and I've always been that way in my career, learning from everyone,
But
and
you got to
just
be
soaking
humble,
it in.
right? That's a you have to have
Hungry
humility.
but humble, hungry but humble.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Always been hungry, right? And life has humbled me. My career has humbled me, but I became more humble as I grew, and it became more of a servant leader, and really just learn how to appreciate everything you have and just the people you work with.
Yeah.
I'm a big proponent of, I work for the people that are on the
Yes.
team, not the other way around, right? So, I've
Yeah.
had people that I've worked with in the past where they're like, yeah, I want to work under this person. And I'm like, I don't look at it like that. I look at it, we're on the same page. We're both human beings working towards the same common goal. Yeah, someone with a title might have more responsibilities, but we're on the battlefield together. We're
That's right.
pushing the agenda forward. We're the ones making it happen, right?
Yeah.
And we're doing
Yeah.
it together.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier tell someone, let's go, let's do this together, then hey, I need you to go and do this and point to,
Uh, at 1,000%. That's my philosophy as well.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
philosophy is we're all in the trenches.
Yeah.
I got your back, 1,000%.
In this
always gonna
together.
go to yeah. I'm gonna go to
Always.
bat for you. Um, and my job is to give you the tools that you need and to be, a sounding board and a confidant and a teacher
Yeah.
and a coach, right? And so, and I've always, hire people who are better than me in
Yeah.
those areas, right? And
Exactly.
so,
And can I add one thing? All those
absolutely,
things that you mentioned are the melting pot for an incredible team, a great group of individuals who can execute. But as a leader, and even if in your day to day, doesn't even have to be in a leadership role. It could be with your friends, your family, those you love. It's one thing that I know that works across the board.
yeah,
It's the best marketing strategy. It's the best business tech, whatever, however you want to live, business strategy.
yeah,
It's caring. When you truly
yeah,
care, people see it, they feel it, and that right there, you can't fake authenticity.
yeah,
So when
yeah,
people know that you're being genuine and you genuinely care about humans, you care about somebody at the root,
yeah.
they know that, and
Yeah,
they'll
you
go to the
can't
end of the
fake
world
it.
with it. You
You
can't
can't
fake
fake
it.
it.
You can't fake it.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm with you. I've had some very good leaders in the past that I've learned so much from. And I've had not so good leaders, and
Oh yeah,
they talk a
I've
good
been there.
game. But when when the rubber meets the road, they don't got your back. so,
Ah, I've
so
been there.
it's
I've
it's
been there.
so
Preaching to the
it
choir.
yeah, and it's I wrote actually the other day I was writing I haven't published it yet, but you mentioned care, and I said that at the end of the day, and correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, how tough it is to keep people engaged, right, and to keep people from not jumping ship if we can avoid it, right? And I said, yeah, in order for us, and this came out of a conversation I had with a professor of HR from FIU not too long ago, where we began talking about employee engagement, and he asked me the question. So to you, what does that mean? What is employee engagement? Because he says in the conversations that I've had with HR professionals, it seems like they're more of they've become like DJs and event planners,
Yeah.
right? So they think that by doing these, which by the way, don't get me wrong, that's needed, but I think that's one part of how to keep people engaged. So I was thinking about that right after the conversation. I said, well yeah, what isn't? How do you keep people engaged? And so I came up with a little acronym, CARE. You have to celebrate people,
Amen.
right? You have to advance people, right? Because people
Mm.
wanna make sure that they're they're um, they're advancing in their careers. That you help them get to the next to the next rung.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Um, you have to give them the resources,
Ah, yes.
right? I mean, because I've been there, right? I've been in situations where either I've been hired to do a job, and in the interview everything goes well because the track record sort of speaks for itself, and
Agreed.
and but they then I've shown up and I'm okay. So here are the tools that I need in order to get this job done.
Yeah.
Wow. Maybe not. I had that not too long ago, where you know no resources, no staff,
Or
no
limited
team,
resources.
no. Well, in this case, there was like very very little resources, and so the art for me became you have to be resourceful. All right, you have to
Yeah.
figure it out how to
Yeah,
make
there's
it
a
happen.
difference between being resourceful and resourcefulness, right?
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
So
Um, and so you have to give people the resources
resource.
that they need, and then the E was you have to embrace people's ideas. You have to embrace their vision, right?
Yeah.
I still remember the time I met with she was very very talented. I saw a lot of potential in her, and in fact when I got hired, she was an interim in the department, in the L&D department, but she wanted to jump ship. She wanted to go to another department. And I
Wow.
remember I said, "Look, don't go anywhere yet. Let's give it a try, right?" And so she and I developed this, working relationship. And I remember I called her into my office, and we were talking about, things that needed to, we needed to accomplish as a team. And
Yep.
I point blank said, "What do you suggest? What do you think we should do here?" And she was like, "Nobody's ever asked me that before, right?" And so you have to embrace the fact that other
Yeah.
people may have better ideas, right, than you have, and embrace them, because a lot of leaders give them, they pay lip service, and they just, "Yeah, okay, tell me what you think," and they probably take that idea and take credit for it, right,
Yeah.
or take the idea, but they're not going to do anything with it. So they never do anything with it. Now, look, it doesn't mean that you have to always do what people are suggesting, but if you never take their
Yeah.
their advice or their ideas, and then of course give them credit for it. So care for me, engagement. It's a very all-encompassing, strategy that we have to have as leaders. You have to have all these things in place. If not, you're not going to have an engaged team. So
Spot on.
that's
Spot
my
on. Yeah.
I feel like I'm
When's the
preaching.
next book coming out so I
I
can
feel like
get
I'm
it? Because
preaching
that's
sermon.
that's spot
You
on.
know, Edwin, it's coming. I have one cooking. The problem is that it's been cooking for a little longer than um what I've wanted, but it's coming. Hopefully by the end of
So
the year.
so so I'm gonna share with you something.
Oh, by the way, it
I
has to
share-
be with being a L&D
Oh, of
ninja.
course, L&D
Yeah,
Ninja. But
yeah,
I will say this.
yeah.
So I always change the frame of reference, right? So for
Uh-huh.
me, I don't look at problems. I look at solutions, right?
Yeah,
I don't look at things from a negative, like more like an opportunity, right? So when people see a challenge, you got to see the opportunity. When
yeah.
people see a problem, you got to see the solution. So how can we get that book out? That's the next time. Next time we
Yeah, yeah,
talk,
yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah,
what we're
yeah.
gonna talk
You
about.
gotta hold me accountable. Hold me accountable. And by the way, again, our friendship. You were one of the first people who really supported me when I launched my first book. By the way, people, don't go and get it. I mean, the spirit of it is good. It was my first attempt at writing, and it's not that good. I mean, so it's funny. I mean, yeah, you have to be honest with the people, right? So if you want to get it in Spanish, because I translated that book in Spanish, and in
From
Spanish.
Spanish to English or English to Spanish?
No, no, because I wrote it in English, and
And you translate it to Spanish.
then I think it took me about a year plus, about 18 months to translate it into Spanish. But in the translation, I didn't translate it, it has the same message and meaning, but I was able to make some very nice adjustments to it. So the Spanish version of that book is a lot better. So, but
Nice.
Edwin was in my when I launched my first book.
Yes.
So Edwin, what do you do? And I kind of know some of the things that you do, because I've been part of, at least privy to what you do with your team. But for our viewers, what are some of the things that you do in order to keep your folks engaged and motivated? Because they're high spirited. I mean, you could tell that they were very passionate, and again, it's a reflection on you as a leader. So what are some of the things that you do that you could probably share with other people that they also could probably put into practice?
Well, one of the first things is always lead by example. Like, and I don't always, I'm not someone to really say you have to do this, but I think it's important to do this, is to lead by example,
Yeah,
right? So always, even though it's not best practice, I'm sick, I still show up to work. If I'm not feeling well, I'm still there, right? Because I'm here for my people. I'm here to
yeah,
serve them. So, I can never ask anybody to do something I'm not willing to do myself,
yeah,
right? So being there, showing up. I think part of what you said earlier was celebrating having such talented people, and some of the folks, like I mentioned, they're coming with L&D backgrounds, some don't, some have training backgrounds, some don't. So it's also teaching and contributing and putting them in a position to be successful,
yeah,
showing them the way, teaching them, but also giving them the reins to say, hey, what do you think? All the things that you mentioned and then some.
yeah,
Celebrating folks, right? We have on Fridays, which you've been a part of, on Fridays we have our team meeting, right?
Yeah.
And it's not a stand-up meeting or a meeting where we were here to report about what we talk about. What have you done for the week? Let's celebrate. Let's talk
Yeah.
about. Let's do some
Yeah.
fun activities.
Yeah.
It's about that camaraderie. And I feel like building that bond, having that connection with all those that you work with and for, are critical. They're paramount.
Did you catch yourself there? And I don't know if the rest of you caught it. Those of you whom you work for, right? You work as a leader.
Yeah.
You work for people. You work
With
for your
and for.
team.
With
Yeah,
and for.
yeah. Because a lot of people have these, this wrong notion of what it means to be a leader,
No.
especially young inexperienced leaders, and they think that, well, I dictate.
Yeah.
And it's not the case. And you mentioned servant leadership. I'm huge on servant leadership, because I think that's I think it's a better position to have, right?
Yeah.
And by the way, long term, you even if people end up leaving, people need to leave sometimes, right?
Sometimes, yeah.
They need to, feed their family, and maybe that's gonna happen.
Yeah.
And as a leader, you can never be resentful about that. You have to celebrate people, and sort of, come alongside them, right?
Well, it's
And what
funny you mentioned that. I've had people within, not just in the current organization, but even previous organizations, who I've been able to work with, alongside, and for. And regardless of the position, regardless of the role, if somebody makes a decision to move forward in their career, to take another opportunity, it should be celebrated. The way I look at it is, this is an opportunity for you, right? You're feeding your family, but more importantly, this may be an advancement for you. So I've had folks that have left for reasons not because of work, and guess what? We supported 1,000%.
Yeah.
I've had folks who get amazing opportunities, and guess what? I supported 1,000%.
Yeah.
I've had people that come back and say, "Hey, you know what? I shouldn't have taken the opportunity. I want to come back," and I
Yeah.
supported 1,000%,
Yeah.
because it's all
Yeah.
about caring. It's all about supporting.
Yeah.
And even before they go, I tell them, "Look, I've been on the other side." And they always say the grass is greener on the other side. I've been on the other side. Ain't no grass.
Yeah. Well, sometimes.
Sometimes, but the grass,
I'm
the
not
grass
gonna lie.
looks
I'm not gonna lie.
a little
Sometimes
nicer when you're on this side, right?
it's been greener.
Water the lawn you have, right? Take care of it.
Yeah, I mean, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, and what happens is, when you have that, when you take that stance of, listen, you need to do it. Um, they respect you for it, and you have this long lasting relationship with those folks. And listen, in our at least in our industry, we're a very small community compared to other industries where L&D is very, very small. So
L&D and education, right?
yeah,
And
very,
that
yeah,
education space.
very, very small.
And as we stand, I feel like we're all 6 degrees of separation from knowing one another.
No
Like, you
kidding.
know somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody.
No
But in
kidding.
this space, L&D and education, it's even smaller.
Yeah, no. I mean, absolutely. So, I remember, I hired a very, very talented instructional designer, superb. I mean, rock star. And less than a year later, I remember, I still remember, like, the text, and I could, maybe it's because I've been in the game for a little longer. I could read the text, that something was not normal about the
Yep.
text and normal.
Yep. I've gotten those before.
And so I was bracing myself. I think I was having lunch or something. I was like, oh, I'm gonna get indigestion here. I could sense where this might be going.
It feels heavy. You can feel it.
And sure enough, she came and she's apologetic, but Reggie, they're paying me 50% more, and they're giving me stock options. And what do you say to that? I mean, you have to take it.
Yeah.
Forget about us here and me. We'll figure this out, right? But you definitely, it would be responsible of you not to take it. You have to do it, and it's gonna be. And it was for, not only were they paying her more and giving her stock options, they were giving her more of a leadership role that in
Yeah.
in the organization, just we couldn't do that. And so,
Yeah.
celebrate people. Celebrate
100%.
those people that you come across, because life has a way of,
Always comes back full
yeah,
circle.
it's a small world. it's a small community. Be nice. Always be, cordial, and be a servant leader, because
Yeah.
you never know the person that you may be giving a hard time to today. You may be asking
Yeah.
a job in the future. So be
Yeah.
nice. Be nice. Um, what do you do for motivation? How do you, number one, motivate? Because people are seeing your the type of person you are. You're spirited. What do you do to self motivate, and then what do you do? What are the things that you do to motivate your team?
One of the biggest things that I think, and this happened early in my career, I got into personal development. Just I fell in love with learning. And it didn't need to be always about motivation. It could have been about health. It could have been
Sure.
about anything, cryptocurrency, whatever it is, right? Learn something new, keep
Yeah.
the brain challenged. But early in my career, personal development was one of the biggest things I was excited about. And just learning about human potential, learning about how you can really program your mind, because the reality is if you don't program your mind will program you.
Yeah.
So, if you kind of go through life wandering, then you kind of end up nowhere. It's kind of like a sailboat with no direction, right?
Yeah.
So kind of pouring into yourself, learning stuff, kind of learning from, some of the greatest philosophers to live, and just reading books. But the thing that I felt like I invested the most time was, believe it or not, YouTube University, College of Google,
Mm.
right? And it's just, or picking up a book, right? Picking up an audiobook. That was
Yeah.
something I was into, like major, like when Audible first came out.
Yeah.
I think to this day, my Audible library has to have like, I don't know how many books. And I also used to download books, right? So
Yeah.
there was books you could download,
Yeah.
and any book that was for free, I was downloading, right? And just a plethora of learning. And it's not just about L&D, about sales.
Right.
It's everything. How to talk to people, how to, Dale Carnegie, how to win friends and influence
Yeah.
people, right?
Yeah.
So all of those personal development, philosophy things,
Yeah.
health, wellness, the latest technologies, all these new things, and just keep feeding your mind. But what I learned, and this was one of the game changers for me, was your mind is most impressionable the first 30 minutes of your day. And
Absolutely.
at the last 30 minutes, right? So I literally would feed my brain, the first 30 minutes of the day, wake up, listen to something motivational, read a book, do something where I was exposing my mind.
Yeah.
Or listening to something that could contribute.
Sure.
Or that I could share with somebody and pay it forward. And more times than not, when one teaches, two learn. So it was like whatever I learned that day, I was excited about it, and I wanted to share with others. So, a lot of the things that I've shared and I've kind of learned along the way wasn't because I created it. I learned from other leaders. I learned from books. I read an audio or listened to something, a podcast, right?
Yeah.
And, you kind of, you don't have to reinvent the wheel, just model what works.
Absolutely.
Tweak it, make your own, modify it where you think it's appropriate, and then use that, right? And that's what I would bring with me to work. That's what I would bring with me in opportunities where I can contribute to others. And that's part of what I do in my role, not just as a director, but even when I was an advisor.
Mm-hmm.
I did that with my students,
Mm-hmm.
right? When I would talk to my students, I wanted to see them become the best version of themselves.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I want you to leave this conversation better than I found you. What can I do to help
Yes.
you get to where you want to go? Whatever your goals are, personal, professional, let's work together to get you there. And that it doesn't matter if you're somebody who's just getting started in your career, or you've been doing it for 30 or 40 years and you're about to retire.
Yeah.
Leave people better than you found them. I feel like one is more than none. And if you can make a difference in one person's life, it's still more than none.
Yeah.
Leave the world better than you found it. And that's just the way I look at it.
That's a great. I mean, thank you for sharing that. So you spend that first 30 minutes, which is, listen, we all have 30 minutes, right, in the morning.
And you can do it while you're having breakfast. You can do it while you're in your car.
Yeah.
The best place, actually, I never told you this. What's the best university I ever attended?
Was in your car?
Automobile University. Guess what? It's free. I mean, you got to pay the car payment, but
Yeah. When you're stuck in Miami traffic, right? I mean,
right.
you're spending more than half an hour building yourself.
So
Which,
much
by
to learn.
the way, I would hope that more people in Miami spend that time. So I think there'll be less shootings in the highway.
Yeah.
If people did. But what you mentioned there is, you're sort of you cannot give what you don't have.
Yes.
Right? You cannot give what you don't have. And when you're a leader, you need to check yourself, right? You have continuously check yourself. One wrong word or conversation or gesture
Yeah.
could just ruin the whole thing. And so by you sort of, exposing yourself to things that are going to be beneficial to you, you sort of, out of that abundance, you can give to others, right? And it sets
Of
the
course.
tone, right? It sets the
Of
tone
course.
for
Yeah.
how that day's gonna go, how people are gonna react.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, from listening to you, I know you are too. I'm a huge proponent of having a growth mindset,
Yeah. Yeah.
rather than a fixed mindset. A growth mindset will allow you to have that sense that I don't have it all figured out, but I'm working on it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I'm gonna keep
Yeah.
working at it.
Listen, we're
And
all work in progress. This is one of the, and I still to this day, I love being in training, immersed, part of the group and engaging with the group and audience, because there's nothing cooler than seeing somebody, when they learn, and you've seen it as a teacher, that aha moment, right? That you look
yeah,
like, oh, I
their eyes
got it.
get
Or they
big.
see something and they're like, yes, it's possible. I can do it. Or
Yeah,
now I believe, or now I understand, or you know what? Now I figured it out, right?
yeah,
You show them the way. And I always shared it. This is like early in my training career and learning and development was, I would always kind of start everything because I had people from different industries, people who have a lot of experience, and they come in and they're like, I'm the best thing since sliced bread. And I used to be this and I used to be that. And I said, look, used to be's don't make no honey. So let's take a step back. First off, second of all, there's an old saying that we've been programmed in our mind, and you'll probably be able
yeah.
to finish this. Practice makes.
Perfect.
So I would always say, look, while you're in this training with us for the next week, for the next 2 weeks, I want you to take that word perfect and put it aside. Just put it on the shelf, put it in your back pocket, because you can always better your best. You
Yes.
haven't done your best work yet, and your best is yet to come.
Yeah.
So the moment you think you're perfect, you're going to stop learning, you're going to stop growing, you're going to think there's nothing more for you. So let's put perfect aside.
Yeah.
Let's strive for progress and not perfection.
Yeah. Perfection is it's a fallacy. It
Yeah.
doesn't exist. And people. By the way, I think we at some point or another we all fall victim to that type of
Yeah.
if,
Very
for
easily.
the longest time, Edwin, I refused to do these podcasts because and not the right lighting, not the right mic, not the no, right, because
There's always an excuse. Trust
I
me. We
wanted
can
to be
always find one.
perfect.
There's always something we can find.
And for me, I would justify it by saying I want to give my potential audience the best. No, you're trying to be perfect, and it doesn't work. And it wasn't until and by the way, that's why I wrote the book, and the book is not perfect.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, you gotta you gotta jump in. You gotta jump in and expose yourself to being vulnerable, and that's where growth really takes place. And I like the attitude of we all should be students,
Oh yeah.
right? We all should be students every step of the way. And I I've learned a lot from you today. And I used to be your professor, right? And by the way, throughout the years, I've learned so much from people like you, and other of my former students who are in different industries, right?
Yeah.
And what I wanted to say, Edwin, um, in using your example, because you didn't have a background in L&D, but here you are leading a thriving team. No pun intended, right? Thrive DX.
Right. Yes.
Uh, I have to catch myself all the time because I'm always using the word expand,
Yeah.
and I'm like, I'm not promoting my tool right now, but it is about expanding, right?
Yeah.
It is about doing that, and what you've done should be an inspiration to anybody who's watching this, who may be thinking, I like this L&D deal. It's an industry that's going to continue to explode.
Yeah.
I'm a huge proponent, and now in this stage of my life of giving to people and giving them advice and letting them know, listen, I've gone through it, and that they don't need to have the formal training first before they jump. You know what I mean? They
You
can
can
like
learn.
I started without any formal training, and And it was a great teacher for me. And so again, if you have the right attitude, if you have the attitude of I'm a student, I can learn, I can get better every day, you can be very successful in this field or any other field.
Yeah,
Any
I agree
any
with you.
any parting words of wisdom or advice that you can give you?
I mean, there's been so many great things that we've talked about. I love to see people reach their full capability, right? I love seeing what somebody reach their potential all about, because there's something special about human potential. And I
Yeah,
think that's what's always drawn me back to learning development and training, but also working with students in the higher education space is helping people reach their full potential. Because when you look at it, right, the capacity for humans to improve themselves, they can study, they can train, they can practice, and they can reach limits far beyond their own imagination, right?
yeah,
And they can develop skills and they can develop new aptitudes. And I think if somebody has the right attitude, there's nothing you can't learn. But if you got a bad attitude, there's nothing that can help you, right? But if you've
yeah,
got that growth
yeah,
mindset that you talked about, right? If you believe with something, you stick with it, right? Once the mind is stretched to an experience, to a new experience, it can never go back to its old dimension. So,
yeah,
so learn new things, right? Go talk to people in your industry. Don't be afraid to explore, right? Get out of your comfort zone.
yeah,
Sometimes the best places are outside of your comfort zone. The
yeah,
places that can take you the furthest outside of your comfort zone. Some of the best opportunities will be outside your comfort zone.
yeah. 100%, 100%. Thank you so much for sharing that, Edwin. I think that um, I hope people follow your example in what you've talked about here today. I think that
Me too.
you're
Me too.
spot on, and I cannot wait to see. Listen, I've known you now for more than a decade, and I've seen your trajectory. I cannot wait to see what happens with you in the future. Just remember to hire me at least as an adjunct. I've
I know. Listen, I know a guy that knows a guy. Don't worry, we
yeah,
got you.
so I'm never gonna retire, by the way, because I think that's a mistake that but I'm gonna be that old professor
Yeah,
who's gonna come in with a stack of books and maybe fall asleep at the lectern in front of the camera for a little bit and then come back to it.
but it'll still be one of the best lectures and one of the best lessons that a student can attend.
Well, thank you, and thank you so much for spending this time with me, Edwin. I'm gonna bring you back if you don't mind. And to all our viewers, thank you so much. I hope you gained a lot from this conversation. Listen, Edwin has taught us so much today about humility and having a growth mindset and having a servant leader heart. And when you're in a position like that, I think it doesn't matter whether you have experience or not in this field.
Yeah,
The sky's the limit. I mean, and you can achieve a lot. So, and by the way, we need more people like that in our industry. We need more people who have that
definitely.
type of. Those are the best trainers, by the way, and the best educators. Best professors are the ones who actually care about their students and want to see them grow. So, thank you so much for joining us. I'll see you
Thank
next
you.
time. And remember, just keep developing people, keep
Yeah,
feeding
man,
people, keep
for sure.
building people up. I'll see you next time.